A very good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. This is Sven, and welcome to a new episode of Coaster Kings Radio. And today I have a special episode, because I'm not going to talk about a European park, but I'm going to talk about a US park. And so I need someone from the US, and it's not Sean and Alex, no, it's Ian! Hi Ian!
It is! Hi, how's it going? And I'm joined by my coaster buddy, Pete again, who was in our episode on Six Flags Magic Mountain versus Cedar Point. Say hi, Pete.
Hello. Happy to be back.
Hi, Pete.
And so we're going to be talking about Carowinds, and Caro misses in our park, in our trip. It was definitely a difficult trip. Would you like to... I'm trying to think the best... How do we gingerly put this in a nice way about Carowinds in our trip?
It was chilly.
It was chilly.
It was chilly. It was so.
It was our fault. We went the first weekend.
Yeah, it was opening weekend. If those who aren't in the United States, we had a storm front go through the eastern United States that was unexpected. And so we saw the high in the forecast go from 70 degrees Fahrenheit all the way down to, what was it?
Mid 40s.
Mid 40s Fahrenheit. And just for a reference, that's like 5 degrees Celsius.
Okay, yeah.
Not 5. Yeah, 5
that
to
makes
10.
sense now for me.
Like cold. So freezing. Freezing.
Well,
and
I wouldn't
so
call it freezing, but
yeah.
maybe for your kind of temperature.
Okay, listen. For us in America, we were upset. So, needless to say, it was unfortunate, but they were able to get the rides running, but the first day we were there, they closed after... right at 2 o'clock, which was on Saturday. They closed early because it was too cold, even though the rest of the day it wasn't that cold, but we'll talk about that later.
Yeah.
And then the second day, their policy is that none of the rides a lot of the roller coasters can't run above under a certain temperature, which I think was like 40 degrees Fahrenheit. 40 degrees Fahrenheit. And so none of the roller coasters opened until, like major roller coasters opened until 2 o'clock.
Okay.
2 p.m. So, we had like one sort of full day between the two of them.
Yeah, it was like a combined like 4 or 5 hours of
time in the park
to ride rides over 2 days. So it was not, the stellar opening to the coaster season we were hoping.
Yeah,
correct. I don't know if that was the park's fault necessarily.
Yeah, well. So
we'll still bitch about it, but
the reason that we picked Carowinds for this episode is because you guys recently went, and I have already been to the park. But it was in 2013, so back in the day. And for me, it was my first park in the United States. So that was quite something. The weather was okay. It was cloudy, sometimes a little bit of rain, but still I think it was also a bit humid because it was in June. But I mean, it's the perfect kind of weather, because there's not too much people, and as long as it stays dry, you can still enjoy the park. But it's been a while, so I think quite some things have changed.
Yes, absolutely. So I think that we're going to format this as a tour of the park and the changes, and we'll also get our perspectives on the park as we walk through it. So the biggest change... Well, there's a big change we'll get to at the end. But one of the biggest changes is the park entrance has been totally renovated. So for those who don't know, Carowinds is themed to North and South Carolina history. It very much follows the vein of the Six Flags parks. And the entrance to the park was called Plantation Square, and it had a Southern plantation theme to it.
Okay.
By the time you were there, Sven, it was renamed. But I think when you were there in 2013, it still had that house-looking plantation house entrance.
Yes, because you when I saw that in the show notes that it was plantation themed, I was like, I didn't notice that, because for me it was like a typical American building from in the movies.
Yeah, it definitely is. I mean, I think they tried to shy away from that, but the new area, they've totally ripped out that entrance gate, so now it's very much modern. Sven, I forget. Have you been to Cedar Point yet, or no?
No, I haven't been yet. No, the only Cedar Fair parks that I've done are Carowinds, Canada's Wonderland, which was my first North American park, and Knott's Berry Farm. So those three are my.
I don't know if there's a good point of reference. but it's kind of like a shopping mall. How would you describe it, Pete?
Yeah, it's definitely much more open, and it's giving you a lot of views into the park, and not like it doesn't have much of a facade or anything. You just go through the gate, and it's a nice wide open space, and it has that state line demarcation in the bricks, which
I really
nice.
like that. Because I have a picture
that is fun.
In front of the sign, like in 2 states. It's like, wee. But is it...
No, it's fun.
Does the park... Yeah. Is it mainly North Carolina or South Carolina, the park? Or...
The address is North Carolina, and I think it's actually pretty evenly split. I know Fury is kind of known for being the one that goes between the 2 states, and as far as parks with like impressive coaster vistas right up front, I don't think you can do better than Carowinds, just because Fury just screams right over that that walkway from the parking lot, and then it's just a great panoramic of Fury, and then Intimidator, and then you can see Firehawk in the distance. It's like very stark, very bright colors. It's impressive.
It definitely is impressive. I think that the big thing is they centered the renovation around the construction of Fury. So that happened in 2015, and I think it's one of the most impressive entrances. I'm sure you've seen pictures, Sven, like the way Gatekeeper interacts. They definitely, you can tell that it was the same time, like the same design team was working on both of those. So I think it's an improvement. In that same area, that kind of entrance area, there's 2 rides. One of them is Intimidator. And I don't know, Sven, was that your first? No, you would have had, what's it called, at Behemoth.
Yes.
And I'm assuming you'd been on Silver Star already, but I don't know.
Yes, that you're spot on. Behemoth was my first B&M coaster even. And then I did Silver Star just a few months before I went to Carowinds, actually. So that was my 3rd one. And I don't know. I didn't connect with it. It felt a bit flat. Like, it's enjoyable, but I guess I expected more, especially because it was like the 3rd B&M. And at the time, B&M was really like, wow, especially for someone that was just a beginning coaster enthusiast. Like, I have fun on it, and I like the way the seating is, just like Behemoth. But
like Diamondback,
it's okay.
It's okay, I agree. And I think that, like, the thing with Intimidator, so we didn't, in all honesty, we didn't ride it this trip. I have the credit from a previous trip.
Yeah, I didn't connect with it either.
You didn't.
But it's just because I didn't ride it.
I was kind of underwhelmed by it as well. I thought it was fine. The layout is the most, and this is weird because Silver Star is the same way. It's the most basic out and back layout possible, I feel like. But I feel like Silver Star still has the hammerhead turnaround at the end, right? Like, it's like a overbank kind of. The turnaround on Intimidator is like even less. It's more of like just a typical turnaround and then a drop. I don't know.
And I feel like Silver Star still has those airtime moments, even though they're not ejector or anything. They're still there, and especially when it rains and it's trimless, then Silver Star is really something fun,
I agree, and I think that the B&M Hyper, I think, is interesting because if you look back to when you were going in 2013 compared to us now, like, B&M Hypers were everything. Like, it was so exciting. I mean, when Kings Island got Diamondback, it felt like us in Ohio were like, what? Finally, we have our B&M Hyper. And now it's like, oh, there seems so dime a dozen. Like, I feel so jaded, but it's like, I don't know. It's just not like, they don't have the same hold I feel like they used to have. And I do think Intimidator is one of the weaker ones, for sure.
Especially because during that same trip, I did Apollo's Chariot at Busch Gardens Williamsburg.
The first.
And then it was like, okay, this was what I expected, but...
I love that coaster. I'm hopefully riding it again this summer. I'm hoping I love it as much as I did the first time, because that was my first B&M Hyper, and I love it. Love it. So I think that I agree with that. One coaster we also didn't get to ride was Nighthawk. I don't know if you had the chance to ride Nighthawk, the Flying Dutchman.
Yes, I was also curious about that one because it's Vekoma, and the European landscape has quite some Vekomas, but not this type. so it was very oddball to go into the train.
Yeah,
because the way the restraints are weird. Then all of a sudden you're on your back in that lift hill, and it's like I don't think I had. Yes, I did do a flying coaster before that, and that was Air at Now Galactica at Alton Towers. So I knew the B&M experience. I expected the shaky Vekoma experience, and that was what I got. But I still rode it twice, and like it's a unique ride. And on pictures, it looked so, It's a sexy coaster.
It is. It's gorgeous.
Like,
I mean,
it's just sad that the experience is not as sexy as it
has
should
a nice fresh coat of paint.
Yeah, it just was repainted, and it looks great, but it wasn't running the whole time. I don't know what it was. Their ops were a little weird. It was the opening weekend, so we have to chalk it up a little bit to that.
Yeah.
But
that happens,
I do think that it is a handsome coaster, and it's situated in the lake in the middle of the park where the park's paddle wheeler, like their old steamboat, used to run. So it's a very scenic center of the park, and so that's why it has all that water and kind of a pretty location.
It looks better than Nighthawk not Nighthawk, Firehawk.
Firehawk, at Kings Island. Firehawk was not...
It was fun, and we loved it when it first came, because I didn't know anything about it. I didn't know it had been kind of shopped around to a few different parks at that point.
Yeah.
But it was just kind of smack dab in the middle of just a piece of grass.
It
didn't have that kind of interactiveness.
I will say my first go ahead.
No, I was going to say that the another ride that's there is the first ride I did at Carowinds, and that was the Sky Tower.
Yes,
I have a weak spot for observation towers, because when I worked at Plopsalantepanne, the first attraction that I operated was a Sky Tower just like this. And so I've worked there a whole summer. I knew every click of the system, and I like having the view of the park from the observation tower and see where can I go, and nice to see all the coasters from there as well. So it's still there, hopefully.
Oh, definitely.
And props to the op that was running, because we got to go on it the second day, which was when it was like freezing cold. It was really nice out, like sunny, but it was still like 32 degrees when we got there.
Yeah.
And so we were just kind of meandering around the park, looking longingly at rides that weren't even testing. And the op was like, they're not going to do any of the rides with the lift until it hits 40 degrees. So at least she saved us a bit of time.
She did.
Saved us some grief.
And I grew up with the one at Great America. So for me, like those Intamin, they're Intamin, right? That generation of Intamin Sky Towers is just really... It really has a nostalgia factor for me. I think that they're still a very slick design. Like, it's just that the way you file in and out. I think they're a classic, and I'm glad.
This is my first one. I'm glad we got to go on it, because I don't think it ran the first day. Yeah.
It's a classic for sure, though. Definitely a classic, and it's a nice feature.
It's a dying race.
It is.
It's a dying race, unfortunately, because they are removing the one at Heide Park.
Oh, really?
I fortunately already rode it. But yeah, the one at Plopsa got removed because they seem to be expensive to maintain.
Gotcha.
From what I've heard, so
which is too bad, because they're such a great ride for families too, and for kids to feel like they're going on something really.
Anyone
big.
can ride it.
Absolutely, and air conditioned and heated, which is great on a day.
That wasn't the case at the one at Plopsaland.
Really?
No, that was not the case.
Well, you all have better weather than the southern United States, but they definitely are air conditioned and
not
heated.
Sure.
So that's really the entrance area, and those are some of the attractions there. The next area that we didn't spend much time in, because I'm not super big into kiddie coasters and kiddie rides, is their Planet Snoopy, which is now Camp Snoopy. So when you were there, it would have been Planet Snoopy. And now it's been renovated. In 2018, they relaunched it as Camp Snoopy. So it's basically, they took it and they made it very naturalistic. And so it's lots of trees, and it's like lots of rustic buildings, and everything's kind of brown and greens. And it just is so beautiful. I think it's one of the prettiest kids areas I've ever seen. It's so, like, it's enjoyable to walk there. You know what I mean? It's not like a kids area where it's just bright colors everywhere and like concrete.
I'm looking at the park map, and and I was wondering because there was one ride. Well, besides the Woodstock Express, there was the Kitty Hawk. There was another ride that I did, but I can't seem to find it on the current map.
Was it the monorail?
And that's the Snoopy's Great Skate.
No clue.
Like a mini rainbow.
Oh, cute. Cute.
Yeah.
I wonder if they
because I wanted to. Yeah, because I never rode a rainbow before that,
right.
so I was wondering if it would be like that kind of experience, but
the rainbow.
It was
I
not.
wonder.
But yeah, so that was still one of the rides that I did there, though. I'm trying to see if it's still there, and I'm not even sure who built that thing.
I don't see it in here, but it's possible they rethemed it.
And Carowinds, because yeah, I see it here.
Is it the camp bus?
And
because that one that goes round and round, maybe.
Yes.
Okay.
But it's side seating, right? If I remember well.
It might be.
Yeah, it wasn't as thrilling as I remember now. It wasn't as thrilling as I expected, but on the other hand, it's a ride in the kiddie area.
Yeah.
So.
But I mean, I've never done a
House
House Rainbow
the rainbow feel, but
yeah, it has a rainbows feel. But I will say it's a big improvement. And the other thing that happened, and we'll get to the area later on, is that they moved their antique carousel that used to be in the area, and they moved that to near Vortex and created a new area called Carousel Park, which happened in 2018. So the whole area, it just feels very put together. And I mean, once again, our reference is Kings Island because we're Ohio people. But like the Kings Island Planet Snoopy, which has gotten all these awards, like the best kids area, is so ugly. It's just very like concrete, bright colors, and that's it. And I really wish they would take this in all of their parks and convert their areas into these Camp Snoopies. Just because I like being in Europe, like gardens are such a big part of theme parks, and having pleasant spaces to be in. And this gives that. Like I can imagine a grandparent enjoying like just sitting and looking at the flowers and the trees and the water features. Yeah. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it was definitely an area of the park that I think you could tell that they had spent some time just to make it look nice instead of just have attractions. And I do think it does kind of outclass Kings Island, which to me is sort of the most equivalent park that
I think
would
so,
be compared to.
And King's Dominion, yeah.
Okay.
In terms of size and how many rides
and
focus. But
yeah, and I guess Canada's Wonderland also.
Definitely.
I really felt like there were a lot of things that were the same at both parks. I didn't really visit the Snoopy area in Canada's Wonderland, so it's hard for me to compare because I'm not really the age to hang out in the in the Snoopy area. But yeah, it's always nice to have how to put it? Yeah, like you said, like a garden area where even if the parents are like sitting on the side waiting for their kid to come off,
they can enjoy it.
You have something to look at. Yeah.
Well, and also another change that I think was really clever. So the Carolinas are, is it South or North Carolina was first in flight? Do you know? With the Wright brothers. North Carolina's motto is first in flight because the Wright brothers tested their airplane in North Carolina.
Yeah.
And so they rethemed their Vekoma Kitty invert to the Kitty Hawk, so they named it after the Wright brothers plane, which I think is a cute nod. Okay. Instead of it was like what is it called?
Flying Ace Aerial Chase.
The Red Baron theme
was the old name. Yeah.
Well, I think
it didn't feel very smooth. That I remember.
Hang and bang.
Hang and bangs. They called them the Vekoma Hang and Bang.
Oh wow! But it's weird because like you have the one at Movie Park Germany called the Jimmy Neutron flyer, and that one is pretty smooth. So I thought it was the same one, but maybe I'm wrong.
Well, I think it is, but these are the first generation ones are notoriously bad.
Okay.
And then Vekoma got their stuff together. Anything else to add about Camp Snoopy now? Kids area.
Is the Boo Blaster Dark Ride part of that?
No, it's actually interesting. The Boo Blasters is further on. It's up in...
Okay.
It's adjacent.
It's adjacent, but it's in its separate area.
It's not far.
So speaking of that next area is the one that's changed the most. So I think when you were there, that area was still called Carolina RFD. If you look at the old map from 2013, I think it says Carolina RFD, which is an obscure reference for...
Oh, yes.
I don't know that reference.
That's a weird name for an area when you put it like that.
So the RFD stands for, from my understanding, Rural Free Delivery. And so rural free delivery, it's so weird. It basically means in the United States, there's an old postal code where if you are in a rural area, you put that next to your number, and it's like out of the outskirts of town.
Are you saying rural?
Yeah, rural. Sorry.
Okay.
It's a notoriously hard word. I just wanted to make sure I was understanding.
So it's supposed to be like country themed. It's just a weird reference for them to have. Because it's like, I don't think anyone, even Americans, would know what that means.
Okay.
So that area...
I don't feel bad then.
That was part of the area, was Carolina RFD. And then the corner by Afterburn was back in 2013, was called County Fair. And that had the bumper cars and the yo-yo and that sort of stuff. Was the County Fair area. And so what they've done, and then RFD just further kept going around the park. So what they've done is they actually have split that up. So now the first half of that area, the part right next to Camp Snoopy, is called Crossroads, which is just generic. I don't know. The theme is that they happen to have a B&M invert there. And then they have made a new section around further in there, next to where Copperhead Strike is, and that's called Blue Ridge Junction. And so that's themed to the mountains of the Carolinas, which is fun. It's the Blue Ridge Mountains. And that's a really pretty area. And then the third section they split out. They moved the County Fair themed area is now a new County Fair themed area between kind of the entrance to the water park and the Carolina Cyclone and the Carolina Boardwalk area. So that area is new as well. Okay. The County Fair opened in 2017. Notoriously, Cedar Fair actually sent scouts to Europe to get old County Fair rides. So they wanted Hoos, they wanted yeah. So they scouted for fair rides, and so they have quite a few cool ones there.
You mean to tell me that they couldn't find a zipper?
They couldn't find a zipper. I know they didn't have a zipper, which is a classic American County Fair ride.
It's the most terrifying ride that's ever been.
I've never done one.
I haven't either.
I mean, they're great, but it's a death trap. You can hear the metal grinding on metal. It's terrifying. And you're just in a cage, and it's just, it's one of the scariest rides. I would love to go on one again, but I don't think I would fit.
I don't know. They're scary. So the first section is Crossroads, what's called Crossroads now, and that's home to the Boo Blasters. Was that Boo Blasters already in 2013?
Yes.
And what were your thoughts?
It was the first one I did. I mean, I'm used to quality dark rides in Europe,
right?
So it was a
rude awakening.
It was something.
It's a rude awakening. No, I feel like the dark ride game in the U.S. is so bad, and it's one of the things that frustrates me the most.
Yeah, outside of Universal or Disney.
Although,
yeah.
And also during that same trip, I went to Six Flags over Georgia, and I loved Monster Mansion.
We want to go. That's one of my main reasons I want to go to the park. Surprise. It looks amazing.
Yeah, that was such a cute surprise. I was like, oh, that's nice.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll be going down there soon. But yeah, Boo Blasters is weak. We didn't actually go on it. I feel bad. It's just a Sally shooting dark ride. They need to either do something with it or put it out of its misery, in my opinion. It's just, I don't know.
Yeah, to be fair, I guess if if the GP still loves and likes it, why change it? You know? But I understand from a fan point of view that we are used to so much that it falls a bit flat. But as long as it gets the lines for families and
I mean, that's true.
But it could use some magic maybe and some TLC.
Yes. When you were there, had the Windseeker been installed yet or no?
No. Oh, sorry. I see it on my map here. I think it was there, but I didn't write it.
They notoriously have a lot of downtime, those ones do.
I'm not sure.
They just popped up
It's
all of the
been a
sudden,
while.
didn't they just kind of were in every single park.
What
and
I
it's
do
been like 2 or 3
see...
years.
What I do see in that area, and I presume it's gone now, is Dinosaurs Alive. I remember it was that you had to pay extra for it.
Yes.
But
Cedar Fair added it to a bunch of their parks, and they're all thankfully no longer with us.
They did their time.
They did their time. They just took up a lot of space.
And is the area used for something else now? Because I see on the current park map it is like just a walk around.
Yeah, there's nothing there right now. I think at one point there actually was a little Cars ride there, maybe, or something like that. Okay. So I think it's a good plot for expansion. But yeah, it doesn't have anything. It's not that big, but it's enough they could do something in that corner.
Yeah.
And of course, the main attraction in this part of the park is Afterburn, the park's B&M invert. So I love Afterburn. It's my favorite invert, but that with the caveat that I've never been to Europe. Which arguably Europe has the best inverts.
Or at least some of the most unique.
Some of the most unique. You have Nemesis, you have Black Mamba, I mean, Monster now. Like, I feel like the B&M inverts are doing well. So I'm curious what your thoughts, Sven, are on Afterburn, or what you remember about Afterburn.
Yeah, I remember it being my favorite coaster at the park, that for sure. It has a really good layout, but it's like, as you said, we're used to quite some inverts in Europe, so like if you look at it just as a coaster, maybe it would rank pretty up high compared to the others, but ours are heavily themed as well.
Right.
So, but I guess it's one of those forgotten coasters that's actually really good. So yeah, I mean, it's better than what they had in Canada's Wonderland.
Nuh-uh.
That for sure. No SLC for me, thank you.
No, you're not a stan, not an SLC stan.
It could use a retheme. I mean, it's the holdover from Top Gun. Afterburn's kind of a nothing name. It doesn't really leave you with much. The ride itself is super, super strong and forceful, and I love it. I think it's probably my favorite invert. But like, if you look at something like Raptor or Banshee, like just aesthetically they look better. They have better theming. So it might get kind of lost in that.
I think it does get lost because it's not quite as big as some of the like big inverts like Raptor or even Montu. But then it doesn't have the heavy theming to it. Like, I think it has these tunnels already built into it. Like, I don't see why they couldn't do something really cool with that. I don't know what, but it just feels like
to be fair, for me, like, I have done Raptor, but I've done Monster at
Walligator
Park, which is like pretty much a clone. But and I've done Katoon at Neverlandia, and I'm one of the few that wasn't like blown away by it. So when it comes to inverts, I think size doesn't matter. Basically,
I agree with you.
Quite the opposite, actually. The more they are smashed into an area that they have to work with what they can, the more they're challenged to have these unique elements.
Yeah,
definitely.
But
I don't know.
But still,
bucket list
Afterburn,
invert, Pete. What's your bucket list
ranks
invert?
high.
Nemesis for sure. But
mine's Black Mamba. I think is my bucket list invert. I want to know. It looks so good.
Well, for me, Nemesis.
So I think that's interesting.
Still my favorite one. Black Mamba is intense, you know?
Yeah.
But Osiris at
at
Podcastrix is also a very high favorite of mine, so I'm curious about Montu for sure.
I'm curious about Montu, and I was going to ride it when I was there in Florida this year, but it was closed, so I need to go back to Florida. It was awful. When is a B&M invert ever the ride that's down? Only in Florida. Is that the case?
That doesn't happen a lot.
No. So the new area, and Pete and you and I can talk more about this, is the new Blue Ridge Junction. Super charming. They have a what is it called? The flying scooters. They have a flying scooters that they move. That's actually Kings Island's original flying scooters that actually dates to the 60s when it was at Coney Island in Cincinnati. So very historic, but now is at Carowinds. That's really cute. It's mountain gliders. It's themed to like birds in the mountains. And then, of course, Copperhead Strike, which is the Mac multi-launch. And people really hate Copperhead Strike. I'm sure you've read. People are like, it's so... They are like, oh, the launches are so weak. It's so forceless. Oh, this stuff. And I'm like, yes, the Mac launches aren't an intimate accelerator coaster. Like, it's not the same. I've been on Blue Fire before. I was a young enthusiast. I still thought it was pretty fun, you know? I mean, like...
Yeah, I like Blue Fire. And now, I do know now that Mac can make powerful launches, because with Ride to Happiness, that is a step up for sure. And then even Pulsar at Walibi Belgium, like, that launch is really... The second launch is really intense, well, especially for a water ride. But, yeah, it's Copperhead Strike looks interesting still, because it's unique, you know? And
right.
Was it your first?
It far exceeded
coaster?
My expectations. Like I was one of those ones that, like, you know, the launch looked kind of tepid. It didn't seem like it had much up its sleeve. I was actually very pleasantly surprised how forceful it was, how whippy it was. The launches weren't very powerful, but like it once you kind of were like, you know, that's besides the point. The focus isn't on the launch. The focus is on like how much of a mess it looks. Like, it's very intertwined with itself. It has really interesting elements, like the cutback is really fun. So I was a Copperhead apologist at this point, or not apologist, but a convert.
It feels like when I went to Six Flags Magic Mountain, Sean and Alex at the time were dishing about Goliath, that it's not hyper with airtime and all that, but also for me, that was not the point of that ride. Like, it really felt like something special, and I wasn't looking for airtime on that kind of coaster, you know. So it feels like this coaster as well. You don't have to look for the launches, but you have to go for what is this coaster experience. That's how it feels from my perspective.
Yeah, definitely. And I think what's interesting is the hang time. People talk about the hang time a lot, but it's definitely all about these rapid transitions. Like, people talk about like those rapid Intamin style like turns and curves and inversions, and like that's what Copperhead Strike is about. Like, it's about these kind of these rapid inversions in a very, very compact space. Like, it's a very small plot that it takes up. I don't think people realize it's a really small plot. And I think it's cool that Cedar Fair went with something custom, because I could have seen them going for like a Blue Fire clone. You know what I mean? Like, they definitely could have just like plopped that in there and called it a day. But it's a cool custom layout. I don't know. I think it's a pretty. It certainly is not like an elite strong. I don't know if it's elite or not, but it's a good coaster. I think it's.
I don't know if that distinction. I
think that distinction's kind of silly. Yeah.
It was really fun. We got it. It was our first ride, and I wish we could have gotten another one on it just to get a bit more once it was warmed up. But even so, I mean, it was really fun, and I'm glad we got to ride it, because a lot of stuff was not operating at the time.
Yes,
so
very much so.
It was good that we got to, you know, squeeze that one in.
And then the last section they have is the county fair. It's very colorful, very charming. Once again, Cedar Fair is very polished. I mean, you've only been to a few Six Flags Park. I'm sure Magic Mountain might have been a little shocking to you, to your European sensibilities. Though I suppose you all do have, what's it called? Walligator. I always call it Walligator, like an alligator.
Yeah, but that is just an oddball park. That is it's a weird one out. But no, it really, Carowinds definitely felt like a typical American park for me. Yes. And that's the mindset that I go to, you know, because it's the Six Flags feel, as you say, very attraction centered. Yes. And some high coasters. But is that? So so the county fair, is that also what it is now? What used to be Carolina Boardwalk?
No. So Carolina Boardwalk is still there. But do you know where their spill water was? They had an Intamin spill water, the splash boat.
Yes.
That's where the county fair is. So they took out their splash boat and put that in around their Vekoma Boomerang.
So basically, they got rid of all of their water rides.
Yeah, they don't have a single one left. None in the park.
That's weird.
Which is pretty crazy.
Yeah,
I don't know. It's a bit of a blind spot.
We'll touch upon the rapid disappearing as well, I guess.
Yes.
Because that's kind of sad.
It is sad. What did you think of the Flying Cobras? This was our first Vekoma Boomerang with the vest restraints. And what a difference they make.
I remember having a sunburn.
Oh no!
On my shoulders.
Oh, no.
And if I would not have had that, like the new it's the MK.
Sean and Alex are going to beat us up. I don't know what it is off the top of my head.
Yeah, but so that kind of restraint, I have to say I'm not a fan.
No?
Because it almost crushes my bones because it's so tight. That's why in Disneyland Paris, I'm pretty happy when I do hyperspace in the winter, because then I have my jacket on, and that gives me some, how to put it? Yeah.
Some padding.
Breathing space. Some padding, that's the word.
Some padding.
But then again, it was definitely one of the best Cobras I had done already. And even now, it still remains one of the best ones, for sure.
I agree. I think it ran pretty well, too. It ran pretty well. So the next area is the Carolina Boardwalk. Sven, what is this theme? That's my question. Did you get the theme when you saw it?
Yeah, I remember it being very jukebox-like.
Yeah,
if that
kind
makes
of.
any
Yeah,
sense.
they're kind of going for 50s.
And I love that theme.
Okay.
I love that theme. I mean, sure, it wasn't as polished as it should be, maybe, but again, it's not what I expected in that kind of park. So, but I enjoyed having that theme in the park for sure.
I think one thing that you'll appreciate if you revisit Carowinds, and I would suggest it, is that they kind of extend that 1950s theme into the county fair. So the two areas flow together. Like the county fair is like the very graphical 50s, and then Carolina Boardwalk's more like a beachy surf kind of 1950s. I don't know. It's a little weird that, because you can tell it used to be like the frontier area, because it has the Aero Mine Train, the Carolina Gold Rusher. It has the Carolina Cyclone, and those are like in very like wooden buildings. I don't know. I think it's a little bit confusing, but I feel like Ricochet, their Mouse is very handsome. It's in a very nice building. It's very like beach boardwalk.
That was the only coaster that was closed during my trip, by the way, so I didn't do that one.
Yeah, that's good.
Not that I regret not riding it, but
not a huge loss
compared to some of the other coasters out there.
Absolutely. What did you think of Gold Rusher? Because we didn't get a chance to ride the Aero Mine Train while we were there.
For me, it was like the typical Aero coaster. Very weird transitions, and I'm used to Vekoma mine trains, so that's the standard for me, and I mean, it's fun for families, probably. Probably. I don't connect the way that Sean and Alex do, I think, to those kind of rides.
Absolutely. I understand. Well, how about Carolina Cyclone? The inspiration for Python at Efteling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember that. And I remember it being smoother than Python at the time, because now with the retracking, Python is really good. I'm sure it stepped up its game for sure. Still a classic layout, not super wild, but yeah, I enjoyed that ride.
We also didn't want to shout out the new paint scheme on Carolina Cyclone. It looks so good. It is teal with white supports, yellow trains. They're the old Vortex trains from Vortex at Kings Island. And so for those who don't know, Aero trains, there's first generation Aero Looper trains and second generation Aero Looper trains, and they are different. So the first generation ones are actually probably the ones that were on Python at Efteling. They're smaller. And then when they started building the Mega Loopers, they made them bigger. So if you go on like Viper at Magic Mountain, those trains are actually physically larger, even though they look very similar. So I find them to be a little more comfortable than the first gen ones, which are like on Corkscrew at Cedar Point and like a bunch of them.
Okay.
Yeah. They're still not the most comfortable, but they're definitely an improvement, I think, over that as well. And so moving right along, anything else on the boardwalk? The boardwalk.
Is Vortex part of the boardwalk?
No, Vortex is part of a new area, and it's a great transition. We'll go to that section next. The Carolina Showplace, as it used to be called, is where Vortex and the Parks Theater, and also Scrambler, for some reason, is there. Now it's been renamed Carousel Park, and they've moved the carousel from the kids area to the middle of this park.
Yeah.
And I don't know. It's a really nice area, I think. Any thoughts?
Okay.
Any to add, Pete?
I guess I didn't really notice it as much. But at that point, we were cold, and Vortex was bruising our areas. It was. So I wasn't as fresh at that point in the journey. But the whole. I think with the exception of the Thrill Zone, which is coming up, but most of the park looked very nicely kind of thought out and put together. There's trees. It wasn't just a giant concrete slab like I was made to believe.
Which is what Carowinds' reputation is like one of the ugliest theme parks in America. Just like very much asphalt, and that was it. What did you think of Vortex? Was that was your first B&M stand-up, I'm assuming?
It was the first B&M stand-up, not my first stand-up, because I had done Skyrider at Canada's Wonderland.
The Togo.
Yeah.
What
the Togo, which now is in Europe, by the way, in Italy.
Oh, it's in Italy.
No, it's in Italy. Yeah, in park name that I cannot pronounce, but I think it's called something skate themed.
It's called Freestyle. I think I knew that. It's like
Freestyle.
Yeah.
Is it a King Cobra clone?
Yeah.
Yes, similar to King Cobra.
Because that was my first stand up at Kings Island, and at the time I thought, wow, like how cool am I for riding this looping stand up, but. It's not a good ride.
But for me it was surprisingly okay. Like layout wise, it's not that special. And then again in the same trip I did the stand up one at
Georgia
Six
Scorcher
Flags Over Georgia Scorcher, which was better for me. But I mean, it I don't know what to say with this kind of coasters. They're not necessarily bad, but not necessarily enjoyable as well. It's like I think they still attract queues, right?
They definitely do, which is interesting. The stand-up, I feel like the concept, I think, is still exciting to people.
I think it's the concept is exciting to people, but it's also what kind of sets it back from other rides because it's not comfortable. It's not comfortable at all. Nobody sits on those and has a good time. Like it's just not designed to be, an easy to ride roller coaster.
Right.
We had this kid next to us who was like 2 feet tall. They had to basically lift him up, set him on the saddle, and then it would sink about 2 more feet down so he could ride it. And it was just silly. It was. I thought the same thing about Riddler's Revenge, which was a much better ride and much more, extreme and fun. But still, it was just kind of like, couldn't we just sit down?
Right.
So much better.
I think it's a novelty.
So would you ask for them to change it to a Flores coaster?
At this point, no, but I think it's just the thought of the stand-up ride is just a very antiquated one at this point, I think.
Yeah.
Like, this ride wasn't as bad as I was kind of expecting it, because I've heard it's really bad and, just kind of a mess, and one of the earlier B&Ms that just doesn't have good transitions at all. It wasn't really that in any way. I thought it was very smooth for kind of when it was built. It just wasn't, again, it wasn't very comfortable. And I don't need to be pampered, but I just think that, I don't know, it's just awkward. I'm a tall guy, so just you're kind of like... at the whim of the train.
Yeah, I think that the other thing with if they hadn't built Copperhead Strike, yes, the floorless would make sense because they would need a traditional looping coaster besides their Arrow. But now they have Copperhead Strike kind of doing the modern looper in a much better way. I don't know if the conversion makes as much sense. That's my thought, at least.
Okay. And so this is the area where Rip Roaring Rapids used to be, right?
Yes.
Because it was Carolina Showplace. Do you know why they got rid of it?
No one does. I've tried to look it up before.
Okay.
I think it seems like it was a cost-cutting measure because water rides are expensive, but it's still there. True. I had heard that they had removed it. It's still there. Like you look over and it's like they still have the whole trough, the station, the path to the station. It's all there. It's really weird, but it's just empty.
Because I really enjoy rapid rides, and I remember that one being like it wasn't the best one out there, but it was decent. It was.
Yeah.
I think they had like sections where you had the waterfall from the highest point from one part of the track into the second part, the lower part. I like those kinds of interactions.
Or a little bit of like the way it feels really integrated and natural. It looked pretty. Like it looked from far away. It looked like it was well integrated into the park. I don't know. It just seems odd to me that it's been shut down and just left there, like just not doing anything with it. That land even. I
mean, are summers in North and South Carolina that bad?
They're hot though. That's the thing.
They're
hot. It's the South. It just seems like I think it's a big blind spot. And I did mention this article that I recently wrote for the website. Like it's a problem that you don't have a water ride. I get that they have a water park, but I feel like if you're like such a big park, like you need to have at least one, like a good flume or a good rapids ride or a good splash boat. It's just weird to have nothing. Yeah. Like give them a Pulsar clone. Like that would be great. Like you know what I mean? Like something like that even, or a Mack water coaster. Like give them something because it's weird that it doesn't exist right now.
Speaking of the water park, is it still free and included?
It's free and included, and it's been rethemed to Carolina Harbor now. Instead of Boomerang Bay. It looks great. It looks nice. We didn't go because obviously it's closed, but it's very looks like very attractive park.
It looked nice.
Yeah, I didn't go into the park. I just did a walk around, and it also gave some views on Thunder Road, which is
I forgot.
At the
I
park.
forgot to mention that when we were over there, no longer with us. It's a little weird.
I only did one side though.
That's okay.
There was only one side open.
Was it particularly good or was it very rough? Thunder Road. Do you remember? I don't know.
It wasn't really memorable.
Okay. Wah wah.
It felt like a typical classic wooden coaster.
Yeah. Well, one thing that this park doesn't really have is good wooden coasters. And speaking of which, the next area, the final area of the park that we're going to talk about is the Thrill Zone, which is where the Hurler is located, which was not as bad as I thought it would be.
It was fine. That's all it was.
It wasn't good, though.
For me, it was boring.
Yes, it's so boring.
And I'm not used to wooden coasters, so it's not a European thing.
I forget for you all, there's no wooden coasters. There's not as many as we have.
That's true.
The last few years, there's some new ones still, but at the time, I think Loup Garou, the werewolf at Walibi Belgium, for me that was a long time the only wooden coaster that I had ridden. I guess Joris and the Draak and Troy were the new ones in the Netherlands by then as well.
Yes.
So that one was like, okay. I don't know.
Right. It's a big nothing coaster.
Yeah. Because we love wooden coasters. Go ahead, sorry.
No, didn't they have a hurler with the same layout in another park, and that got
it's Twisted
RMC
Timbers now
makeover?
Yeah, King's Dominion. So the question is, are they going to RMC this one? I would like it. It would be nice.
It sort of seems like the RMC conversion
trend is slowing down.
Yeah, it's kind of. It hasn't. I can't think of the last one actually. It may have even been Steel Vengeance.
Right. It's just that the park doesn't have a good wooden coaster.
No,
and
Iron Gwazi. What am I thinking?
Iron Gwazi. Yeah, duh.
Idiot.
Duh. But I think the park doesn't have a good wooden coaster, which is a shame because, I mean, unlike Europe, in the States, wooden coasters are like a classic part of the American theme park, like ever since the Racer was built.
And they're still putting them in. Like, they're still going up.
Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know. This one it's fine. It's not the worst wooden coaster, but, it doesn't really do anything exceptionally. It's a little rough, but not, not worth the...
I guess they keep it as one of the few family coasters that are left at the park.
Yeah.
Because, like, not with family, I don't mean like the Vekoma flyer, but something, that's a bit more for the older kids, but still not too thrilling. That for those that aren't scared to go upside down or all that.
Yeah, I think that's the idea. It does seem like it's pretty popular because it's a wooden coaster. And so there's that novelty, like, oh, it's the wooden coaster. Now that Thunder Road is gone, it's like, oh, it's cool and rickety.
It also benefits from what it is right next to, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. You're right.
People tend to maybe do them as a pair, or, one has too long of a line, so you go to the other.
Yeah.
So I've talked about this in previous podcasts, but... what happened was I went to Canada's Wonderland, and then the year after they announced Leviathan, and they built it. Yeah. I went to Carowinds, and the year after they announced Fury 325. So I thought it was like my curse to go to parks, and then the year after they announced a major coaster in the States, but it didn't happen for Knott's Berry Farm so far.
Well, that's talk. Good. There's rumors. The rumors are there.
Oh, true.
If we count COVID, if we blank out the COVID years, maybe your streak is still going. We can vote for that.
But yeah, tell me about Fury.
Fury is, for a long time, was my number one coaster. When I rode it, I know, it was my number one coaster.
No, I'm like, why did it change? That's my
this question. Is Alex and Sean are happy. It's X2 changed it for me. I am a huge X person. It just something about that coaster. It does more than anything I thought a coaster could do. I don't know. Okay. I love X2. It's purely a coaster that did not disappoint me, even though I overhyped it. For me, I'm curious what your thoughts are. But for Fury, I think it's one of the most, for me, the full package for a roller coaster. It has the height, it has the speed, the airtime, the transitions, the laterals, all in a very accessible package. So like you can feel like you can ride it over and over again.
Yeah, it's smooth but still chaotic. It was a great ride. I mean, like we just got Orion at Kings Island, which is also a great ride, and I think I like to defend Orion because people think it's kind of just a lame version of Fury 325, and they're similar, but they do different things, and I think that they can exist independent of one another. So I think my mind would have been blown more if I hadn't ridden Orion before getting on Fury. But Fury was still just it's a beautiful ride. It's just gorgeous. It's beautiful.
It's gorgeous, and it's very aesthetically pleasing, I think.
Yeah, it is. It has a theme, but it's not like it doesn't try to tell you a story. It's just like, look at this pretty
green color
and blue ride with sort of a hornet theme.
And how is the airtime?
It's really good.
It's really good. It's slow jector, I think, most of the time.
And it splits the ride. The ride in the first half is kind of the rapid transitions. You get some laterals, a little bit of airtime in there, but after you go off of the the turnaround treble clef dive, it just every hill hits a little bit differently too. So one of them is a little more kind of graceful, floating feeling, and the others are just there's a twisting one at the end.
So you get kind of sideways airtime. Yeah.
And man, we waited for it too.
Yeah, we did. We waited a long time.
It was still worth it.
It was definitely worth it. I think that the one thing about the B&M Gigas is just those first drops are so amazing to me still, because they're so tall and you're just out of your seat from the top of the hill all the way to the bottom. Yeah. And it's just like you're floating. And the B&M clamshells are like probably the most forgiving coaster restraint in terms of like how much space you have underneath them. And so you really just are out of your seat the whole way. And I think that that's pretty cool aspect of it. I don't know.
It was fantastic.
It's super fun. I would recommend coming back to visit to ride Fury, especially because they also had such a weak B&M hypercoaster from the sounds of it.
So you say.
Weaker.
Yeah, because the only one I can compare to that I have ridden is Leviathan.
Yes.
And for me, Leviathan lacked airtime.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure. After that first drop.
I remember the drop being, because I've been twice since it was built, and I remember the drop being like one of my favorite drops ever. But then after it fell a bit flat. Like, it was still enjoyable, but not the kick-ass experience you expect from that kind of giant coaster.
Absolutely.
So, and what I hear is that Fury 325 does deliver on that.
Oh, it absolutely does. And the big thing is, like Pete said, the airtime on that last round. So after you do that treble clef turnaround, you dive underneath and there's like the lights and the hive. They call it the hive dive. Oh. And so it's really cool. You dive under the park entrance, and there's like these green lights, and you get airtime there, and then every other hill after that has airtime. The only kind of dead part is there's a big helix, but I think that's really cool too, because there's a really good sense of speed throughout that kind of big helix they have towards the end of the ride. I don't know.
Yeah, it lived up to the expectation.
I think so. I think it's definitely one of America's best coasters.
Yeah, we rode it on cold day too, so I can't imagine like a hot summer day. Like, you know, towards the end of the day after it's been warmed up, it must haul ass. Just
definitely
blaze through that course. It was
definitely. So, final thoughts. We're getting to about an hour here. What were your thoughts when you visited, Sven? Would you want to go back to the park or not? Back in 2013.
So, of the 3 parks I did, it was my least favorite, even though it was the first. But I mean, Busch Gardens Williamsburg is just something different, you know?
Special,
it had a very European vibe. Special. It had the green area, the special type of coasters. And then Six Flags Over Georgia also topped it a little bit with things like Monster Mansion, and then I felt like the coaster lineup was stronger as well. But obviously that has changed since then. Still, I mean, Fury 325 is definitely a major reason to go back, but maybe it's not enough to like first go to other parks in the US that I haven't done yet compared to this one. I mean, if it's along the way, I might stop by, but yeah, it's. I hope that from what you guys have said to me about the things they improved, that it did indeed change from an asphalt park to more focus on theming and experience, I guess.
Yeah, I think that you'll notice that when you go back. I would recommend Carowinds. I think it still falls in a weird space for parks because it doesn't compare to Kings Island or Cedar Point in terms of just like sheer ride lineups, or even Knott's. Like it doesn't really compare to Knott's, I don't think. I don't know if you would agree or not, Pete.
Yeah, I would. I mean, the 3 standouts here are really strong, obviously. Yeah. And those 3 would be just worth the trip alone for me.
Yeah,
the park just has some weird.
And which 3 are you talking about? Just to be sure.
Fury, Afterburn, and Copperhead would be my top 3 in that order, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I would say that. Yeah.
But like, it's just there's just some odd qualities to this park. Again, I think we went the first weekend, so they're probably gonna still have to iron out some kinks, get warmed up for the season. But like, I just like the music was super loud, like distractingly loud. Like we couldn't hear each other at some point just because we're just like walking through and it's blaring Creed in our face, and it's just hard to like. It was a strange choice, but like I would absolutely go back.
Yeah, definitely. I think that the best. I think something that reminds me of it when I look at the park map in 2013 when you went, it reminds me a lot of Worlds of Fun. When we went just now, and it just like something seems like it's missing. There's nothing really signature about the park. There's nothing unique and really special about it. I think that Fury and Copperhead give Carowinds those special things. Like, it gives it some signature, unique attractions. I think the park just needs to keep pushing forward and giving it more of an identity and making it more of a full day park experience. Like, you feel like it's very complete, very polished. And they're definitely, obviously, like we talked about, making strides in that way. But I think that's really the next step, is to make it all the more complete and polished and themed. And
what do you think their next roller coaster should be?
Oh, that's a good question. Oh, I don't know.
I think some sort of medium to big scale wooden coaster would
yeah.
really polish it off.
I agree. I can agree with that.
That's true.
That's one of the gaps.
Would you go with GCI or
GCI or Gravity
or
Group?
Both?
Probably. Yeah. I tend to like the Gravity Groups that I've ridden a little bit more than the GCIs, but the GCIs are great. I love GCI.
I don't know, Sven, what do you think would be a good fit for the park?
Coaster wise, I'm thinking, like, is there something European that
I want a mock extreme spinner in every park. Give me Ride to Happiness in every American park, and I'll be happy.
Yeah, I'd be pleased with that.
Yeah, well, I'm not giving that one.
No, gosh, darn it.
There can only be one.
It's ours. Finally, Belgium has some unique coasters.
Belgium does have its unique things now. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, that ride looks amazing.
It looks so good. Ugh, we're so jealous.
Time Traveler.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
definitely the year last year for us with Ride to Happiness and Conda.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, Conda looked great.
So I guess an Intamin would be nice as well in Carowinds, because it doesn't have one, right?
No, it doesn't.
And I feel like they're upping their game with building like unique coasters. So why not?
Maybe we could merge our ideas and have a Intamin prefab Woody.
Oh yes, like an El Toro. That would be great.
That would be
El Toro 2.0.
Okay.
I think an elite Woody would be great for the park, like a really good wooden coaster. And Sven, whenever you're back in the States and you choose to come visit us in Ohio, we're gonna do you the tour of all the wooden coasters, because that's what we're known for at Kings Island, is a wooden coaster park. And I think it's something that we're missing, that Carowinds is missing, and I think that it would definitely be a great addition to the park to have that really great wooden coaster. But I also think I want a mock extreme spinner. I said it. I think it would be great for the park. Something unique. Save that for Kings Island. Save that for Kings Island. True. Well, I think that wraps it up. Any final thoughts that any of y'all want to share about the park? No? Okay.
No, I'm happy. I guess, well, a better dark ride would also be nice.
Oh,
I love
absolutely.
having like one killer dark ride.
I think you need one good dark ride at each park, and none of the Cedar Fair parks have one. Except for...
a new water ride, as we said.
Yeah, a new water ride. True. We were thinking coasters, but I think a new water ride. I want a new flume. I also, speaking of European things I want, give me Chippas. That's nice. What I want. I want a next gen flume and a dark. Make it a flume and a dark ride. You can do both. It could be a ride that does both, and that would be great. Definitely great. So definitely sounds good. Well, I hope you guys enjoyed listening about us talk about Carowinds. I still think one of the weirder parks in the Cedar Fair chain. Mm-hmm. It's like it feels like both a major park in the U.S. and a minor park at the same time. It's like a little bit of both.
Yeah, that's exactly the way I see it as well.
It's like a little bit of both. So
Fury is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah, Fury is definitely doing a lot of heavy lifting, making this a destination park. But if you guys have... Sven, is there anything we need to plug on the website right now?
On the website, I think we have definitely some articles out there on thecoasterkings.com that you need to check out. We also, don't forget, we have our minisodes that you and I and Sean and Alex are launching every week. So just this week we had
Nessie at Hansa Park.
Oh, no, I don't know.
So we definitely have
that was
lots of episodes coming out. Sean and Alex do them together, but look out for those minisodes and look out for new episodes of Coaster Kings Radio. I'm Ian.
please review if you
Yes.
can, wherever you're listening.
Please. Okay. Bye.
See ya.
Thank you for listening. Bye.